What is going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. Today, we announce and analyze the NHL's plan for returning to action and what that means for the entire league. We also discuss the possibility of the NBA's return with their latest plan to get back to action. Also, we wanted to debate what was going on with the New York Jets and Jamal Adams. A lot of things that are being thrown around, said, some possible trade scenarios being thrown out there. We want to dive right into that. And lastly, we wanted to bring you the match two. We're going to recap everything that we saw from Manning, Brady, Tiger, and Phil. Can't wait to get into it. We're going to go live now. All right, Nick. So, we're here,
Yeah,
The first sport has announced their return. Um, it's been a long time coming,
yeah,
It's definitely been
definitely.
something that we've all been looking forward to, and I'm happy that a major sport is coming back into action, and they've announced the plan. For those of you who are unaware, the commissioner of the NHL, Gary Bettman, announced his plan for return. He said that the regular season has officially closed. They are not going to play any more regular season games for this year. Instead, what they're going to do is they're going to open up with a 24 team bracket style playoff. The one seed through the four seed of both the Eastern and Western Conference Finals are going to have a bye week where 5 through 12 on each side are going to compete to fill out the rest of the bracket, and then they're going to go to a playoff style from there. Um, we have the seedings. I'm just going to quickly run through them. In the East, you have 1 through 4: Boston, Tampa Bay, Washington, and Philadelphia. And then 5 through 12, you have the Pittsburgh Penguins, Carolina, the Islanders, the Maple Leafs, Columbus, the Florida Panthers, the New York Rangers, and the Montreal Canadiens. And in the West, you have 1 through 4, the St. Louis Blues, the Colorado Avalanche, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, and the Dallas Stars. 5 through 12, you have Edmonton, Nashville, Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg, Minnesota, Arizona, and the Chicago Blackhawks. So, with all of that being said, Nick, what is your reaction to Gary Bettman's announcement today?
I mean, I'm not all too surprised. I think this is something that it was kind of getting leaked as the days were approaching this announcement, and so we were expecting this. But now that it's here, it's interesting. 24 teams in the playoffs. I understand you need to cut the season short, and because of that, you're gonna allow more teams to compete for the championship. It's only right. But I don't agree with 24 teams. That's just an astronomical amount of teams when only one other one is going to make the playoffs. You're not going to have multiple teams vying for the last playoff spot. It's going to be just two, three teams at most. It's never more. And now to have 12 teams on each side is just a lot. We just expanded the NFL playoff to 7 teams, and we're annoyed about that. And now we're looking at 12 for this season for the NHL, and yeah, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't like it. I think a lot of teams are going to, especially coming back from this break, teams aren't going to be playing the same. I don't expect the top teams to be playing the same, and for them to possibly lose out to a team who would have never had a chance in the rate if the season had gone on, it could be pretty frustrating because they shouldn't have been there. They didn't earn it. I don't think you should have allowed so many teams to be in this.
So you're talking about 24 teams out of 31 in the NHL. That you're right. That is astronomical. Um, but I understand it. Not maybe we can debate it back and forth, but the idea here is that not like Montreal being at 12 in the East, right? They're much better than a 12 seed, and they usually get going late and start making a playoff run toward the end of the season. That couldn't have happened because the regular season was cut in virtually half. So you're taking what you saw in the beginning and saying they're going to be the same team now. I, I disagree. I don't think a lot of these teams are going to be the same as they were. Even the top teams, I don't think some of them will be as good as they were. So I think that this is the best way for the NHL to say, listen, we're going to try to include as many teams as possible without virtually giving the entire league a chance to compete for this thing, because that's not what this is about. But I like 24 teams. I think you're giving a fair shot to as many teams that were in the hunt as humanly possible.
But do you think it'll be fair if a 12th seeded team uh, defeats a first seeded team in the second rounds of the playoffs? Is it going to be fair
If
at that point?
Montreal beat Boston, I would be so angry, but at the same time, they deserved it because they went through a best of five to get to the second round, and then they had to beat in a best of seven the number one seed. So that's what I'm saying, is that they will have earned it at that point because of the style. And don't forget, this isn't, for a Stanley Cup. This is just a bracket style playoff. There is no Stanley Cup this year, so this is just a way for us to get sports. And I mean, if you think about it, this is a prolonged way to get sports. We're looking right now at 12 seeds. That's a lot more games than if you cut it down to 8. um I think you get a lot more juice, if you will, from sports that we've been missing for quite some time.
I mean, just because they're fighting for they're fighting for something other than the Stanley Cup doesn't mean they're not going to compete. They're always going to compete.
No,
They're going
for
to treat
sure.
treat it just like any other playoff. I'm
Right,
just
but
not.
that's what I'm saying, is that you're getting more content, if you will. You're getting more just playoff level hockey by having 12 teams in there instead of 8. If you have 8, it's just like, okay, now it's a regular playoff style bracket. Nobody has a bye week, no nothing, or a bye series, if you will, because there's no weeks in hockey. Um, I don't know. I like this. I like this a lot more than just having 8 teams. I think we're gonna get a lot more out of it. And like you said, if a 12 seed beats a 1 seed, so be it. You know what? They deserve it at that
Now
point.
we're also starting out with a 5 game series for
It's
each
best of 5.
best of 5, right? So it could go 3, could go 5, whatever. These are people who are in one of the most physical sports out there, who haven't been able to train or condition in any way, or haven't had any contact in months, and they're being thrown right back into it. Yes, they're doing some light work right now. They're able to get back in their facility and talk and work strategy and get back out on the ice and practice. But is that enough time? Is that enough time to get your body back in order? Usually, you're given an entire off season to recover. Their bodies have shut down. They're not in that state of mind anymore. Is
Right,
this?
but they also didn't play a full season like they normally do. They only played half a season.
But
So it's a little different.
your body is used to competing for a long period of time, and then once you stop, it's used to recovering at that point. And
Right, but these are professional athletes, so they can work on their bodies like they should have been working throughout.
but it's
I don't
hard because
expect
all
it.
facilities were closed down. It's not that
Right, but
simple.
they have their own personal facilities that they can
That's
use.
not always true. A lot of these people live in apartments. They live in because they're away. They're in other cities than their hometown, so they're not always accessible to these equipment. A lot of the players in the NHL are from overseas, or from Canada. They don't have a solid permanent residence in the United States. They just have small apartments to go crash because they're spending most of their days either practicing or traveling for games. And
I
so,
mean, the players have agreed to this return, so I can't
well,
imagine
I
that they have
understand because
too much of a qualm
eh,
about it.
right, and they want to be back out on the ice. This is what they love to
Of
do.
course.
But I just don't. I don't think it's fair because we're going to see. I think we're going to see a lot of upsets. I don't think we're going to see a lot of teams
And
that.
that's why it's not for a Stanley Cup. That's exactly why. Is because this isn't normal. This is truly to get the sport back on track. The whole point, they're not thinking about this year. They wanted to get they wanted to get content back out on the ice, but the whole goal is to be ready for next season, to hit October, late October, early November, hit the beginning of next season hard, and like they would have normally done it. They want to be back on schedule for next season. They've already chalked this season up as a loss. There's nothing they can do about it. Now it's about planning for the future, and that's what this is about.
I don't know. It just seems like I understand you want to get a product out there, but you're not doing any justice to any of the players. You're not giving them a real opportunity because they've been out of it for months now. You can't really see how a player performs at no one's performing at their peak right at the beginning. It's going to take them all the way till the end before their bodies are in the groove of things. Like you said, it took.
Right, but everybody's starting at that same level, so it's not like one team has an advantage over another.
I'm not a fan of when other teams work extremely hard to get top seeded and they're getting a bye, which I think hurts them because you get less
Well, no,
reps.
because they can practice.
You
And
can
they
practice, but I just I don't think it's a great idea. I don't. I feel like
So
if
what
they
would
had
you want to do differently?
reduce the number of teams and probably not have a 5 or 7 game series. I don't know how big the series gets towards the end of the tournament, but I'd just limit the amount of games altogether to save players from getting injured. I think this is a cause. You're creating a situation where a lot of players are going to get injured due to their bodies not being in the right state of mind, them being physically and mentally in the wrong place. I don't see any good coming out of this. The they're always gonna be competitive because that's just who they are. They're professional athletes. But I just don't see this working out well because who's really gaining anything? You're gonna
Fans.
compete. Yeah, you get to watch action, but at the end of the day,
Isn't that what we've wanted? I mean, you're talking about prolonging even more so the action that we get to see, and all for what? I mean, again, it's not for Stanley Cup, so a lot of fans, as much as they want sports, they're going to watch this, but they're not going to be as in tune as they would as if this was the NHL playoffs. The hockey playoffs are a completely different atmosphere, and we're going to miss that this year.
yeah, I mean, we're gonna be doing this without fans, so it's gonna be quite interesting. There's so many new variables thrown into the scenario, into the situation, that it's hard to predict. But I just don't see any good coming out of it. And with nothing really to play for, yeah, you get a victor at the end of this tournament. But what are they really celebrating? No one's gonna ever 10 years down the line. No one's gonna look back at this champion and be like, they were the best that year. No one's ever gonna think that. And so, what are you really gaining from this experience as a player, as an organization? Not much.
I mean, the players are going to get paid. I mean, they're getting a paycheck, so
I mean,
that's something.
yeah, most of these players don't, they're not suffering like the rest of the country. I'm not worried about their paychecks.
In the rest of the world, but yeah, I it's not even about that. It's more about they want to be back on the ice. They want to play. We want them to play. This is Gary Bettman's way of getting that done in preparation to start next season on time. And I'd rather have this than no hockey at all. I mean that's plain and simple.
I get that, and it makes sense from a fan's point of view. But I'm trying to look at the safety of the game and just what's best for the NHL long term, not just for the here and now. And I feel like we've gone this far. The season would have been over just about now. It'd have a few more weeks left. So, this is just about the time where the sole focus goes to other sports.
Yeah, it'd be on the NBA playoffs right now.
It'd be on the NBA playoffs, and we'd be, working, towards that I probably the half season mark soon in the MLB.
Right. Yeah, we
So
get ready for the All-Star break. I also want to point out, so a part of this plan that Gary Bettman announced today when he was on his call with the reporters, the games will take place in 2 hub cities. They haven't been announced yet, so it could be New York, LA, it could be Boston and Las Vegas, it could be Chicago, Dallas. We don't know. But one is going to be for West and one's going to be for East. They're going to take place there. Each team is only allowed 50 team personnel total in that hub city. So whoever gets this is going to flourish economically, as a city, because they're going to have an influx of people coming in and now going to start spending money. So it's not only good for sports and for fans, but it's a good start to the economic rebuild of the country. And we're not here to talk politics, but it overall, I mean, I think that's a great opportunity for the country. Is that something like this? You're going to have sports betting back. You're going to have people staying in hotels. You're going to have people ordering food and building those businesses back up. So I think this hits more than just sports and sports fans. You have to think about everything, including travel and everything that's going to be, taken up with that. There's a lot more that goes into this that people don't think about.
And it's most likely going to take place in Florida or Texas or Canada. Those are there aren't too many places that are open and ready to support the NHL, ready to support this type of a tournament. A lot of the big hubs, New York, LA, they're locked down still. There's no movement, and it's probably not going to move for a little while. So, yes, it's going to bring some, help towards those cities that wherever these hubs will be. But I think we have to still focus on. I really go back to player safety and what this does. This is telling an NFL player that, hey, the season's starting in a week. Get ready. They've been practicing for. I mean, they haven't been. They've just been going over playbooks, but you need them to be in playing shape in a week. And
NFL or the NHL?
I'm just comparing the two. It's the same,
but they're completely different.
They're not. They're really not. They're both physical, sports. I just think that whenever you are in such a physically demanding sport like the NHL, you need ample time to get ready, get everything in order, and because you're telling an entire organization to get back to work, move, you need them to travel.
But the players aren't saying that this is an issue, and that's where I'm losing your argument.
Because they're not. Do you really expect any player to say this is an issue? No, they want to get back out there. But there has to be somebody on the outside that looks out for them, saying this is not good. You're going to suffer in some way. You're,
this is what they have agents and trainers and other people around them. They don't have to participate in this.
Right, but those are people directly involved with it who benefit from them returning. I just don't. As a fan, I'd rather them come back next season full strength, have an entire off season to get ready, than just a couple weeks of light work, and now they're back to full force.
So you want to cancel the entire? You don't think that
we've been without it for 2.5 months now? I don't think there's a need.
And you want to continue that until what? The start of the NFL season?
No, well, could be that. I think we could still bring back baseball at some point. That
long gone, but that's a discussion.
I don't know how you could say that's long gone, but that the NHL season would just be over. So we're not really missing anything at this point in the year.
We're missing playoff hockey. We're missing everything that led up to it. We're missing everything. You're saying we're missing nothing. We're literally missing everything. And you're saying, well, it would have already.
But it's already.
Yeah, we would have had that already.
But you just gotta cut your losses. It would have been gone no matter what. So just move on.
The only one I would cut would be baseball, because that never even started. There's no point.
But we wouldn't even be halfway through the season. It's a different scenario.
But it didn't start. It didn't happen. I think we're getting off topic here. This is the plan that's going to happen, and the players seem like they're on board. I'm interested to see it. You don't have to watch it if you're in it.
I hope everything goes well, and I expect to see some great gameplay, but I'm not as optimistic about the outcome of each team's health and well-being or even the gratitude they'll get from competing and winning that they would from a normal playoff. Um,
Like I said, it's not about that. It's about giving the fans something right now so they can get back on track for next year. That's all it's about.
we'll see. We'll see what happens, but and I'll watch. I'm not gonna just sit out because I'm against it. But you know, best of
I
luck
mean,
to those players.
well, the NHL has announced their plan. Now the NBA is continuing to think of a plan. It was reported today that the NBA is considering a group stage format for their return. So the top 20 teams would be placed into groups of four, groups of five based on their seeding. So four groups of five. The NBA would be played just like the World Cup, that type of seeding, where each group plays two games against each of the four other teams in their group. The top two teams that come out record wise will move on to a bracket style type playoff after that point. So you're going to go from 20 teams to 8 teams. You're going to have the it's not going to be split between East and West. It's literally a culmination of all 30 NBA teams. Now, it was reported by I believe it was Kevin O'Connell uh, at ESPN, who said that the Eastern Conference teams have been the majority against doing something like this, mainly because I think they understand that there's quite the talent divide between the Western and Eastern conferences, and that they don't want to be subject to that in there, and they don't want to show how weak the East is. Nonetheless, this is the idea that they're going with right now. It's up to the players whether this is something that they want to do. But what Nick? What are your thoughts right off the cuff?
You know, I'm not in favor of a more physical sport like the NHL coming back, but when you talk about the NBA, it's a little bit different. Pickup basketball games happen all the time. You can, in a situation where, you're, are they compete? Would they be competing for a finals?
Not for the finals. No, it would just be another.
It would be another just another.
They'll get something, just like the NHL. They'll get something. Whether
now,
it's
now another question for both sports is, how does this affect the draft? Because if I'm a top team like the Bruins or the Lakers, wouldn't I be tanking because I'm not playing for anything? Wouldn't I just lose in the first round and get a better draft pick?
As far as I know, that hasn't been brought up. I honestly have no idea. That's a great question. Honestly, like especially in the NBA when you have a lottery style type system, are they going to take what we've seen so far as the original seeding for the lottery? Is that because that would probably make the most sense?
It would. Is it justified? Like, is that the right?
No, because whoever was at the bottom, I honestly don't know who it was anymore.
Probably the Warriors or the Cavaliers.
One of those three teams they could have flip flopped at some point. You're talking about Klay Thompson could have been able to come back this year, and then you also talk about a team like the Nets, right? They were shutting Kyrie and KD down for the entire year. KD obviously hadn't played, but they had said he's not playing. Like, he's done. Even if he's eligible and able to come back, he's done. They were starting to just kind of tank the rest of the season, get ready for next season. Now what? Because now they're going to be thrown into this playoff mix. And now what? Because at this point, KD should be ready to go. He should be almost fully back, and then Kyrie should be fully healed from his injuries at this point. So, I mean, there's so many questions with some of these teams that you really don't know what's gonna like with the draft, with free agency. I mean, look at a team like the Lakers, right? They were stacked and ready to compete for a championship this year. There's a chance that Anthony Davis isn't a Laker next year. There's a very good chance that could happen.
Giannis isn't a Buck, probably.
Who knows? I mean, there's so many moving pieces, and the way that the NBA has built up their free agency period, I'd be very shocked to see the teams remain the same way they are now, especially for one more season. I,
I'd
I,
rather them do
people's
something a little bit different because I'd rather them say, look, the season is over. We're going to take the standings that we ended with and run with that for the draft. Now, for this tournament, instead of having regular teams, why don't we create 10 teams, have 10 team captains, and just have people pick? Like this is street basketball, like a pickup game.
I
And
think
just
the only
create
issue
mini
with
all
that
star
is that
teams.
these players are still being paid, and you don't, as an owner and a GM, you don't want to pay your player to compete against another one of your players. You don't want to,
Yeah, but
like
I also feel like it should be part of the NBA's responsibility to pick up the contracts.
well, see, I highly disagree with that. I don't think that it's I don't think any onus is on the NBA to pick up their contracts. I think it's on the teams to pay them out for the games that are played, not the league.
Nothing. You're not playing for anything anyway. I just and you're not bringing in fans. You're not. I don't know what you're losing. Like you could still have them in your city, or you could have them. You still have your organization back at work. I don't think you're losing out in any more than you are already.
I mean, again, we're talking about professional athletes who are bred to compete. That's all they want is competition. They all want to win. So keeping them on the same team, I don't think is an issue, especially if you're going to keep the original seeding from the cutoff of the regular season. If you keep that for the draft, now all they have to focus on is competing as a team and competing for fill in the blank title that the NBA will be handing out for this. So, I at that point, I think keep the teams together and continue with this type of style. I think it's interesting that they went with a World Cup type style where the teams are split up into groups of basically the same talent level, if you will, before they hit the playoff bracket style.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I like that idea of it. Um, but the longer they wait, the harder this becomes because then you're going to be interfering with other sports. Um, yeah, especially when you have all 30 teams.
Well, no. It would be 20. It would only be 20 teams, and
Okay.
it's groups of 5. Um, and basically the NBA, like I said, the NBA would be played where the top two teams of each division move on from that point. So they play each other twice within the group. So if the Celtics are in a group with 4 other teams, they have to play all 4 of those teams twice, and whoever has the best record from that group moves on to the playoff style bracket from there, just like
Yeah.
the World Cup does.
So whenever this starts, we're looking at another month and a half of
Right,
basketball.
and Adam Silver has already said he doesn't want to cut into the NFL season, and rightfully so. He knows that the NFL is absolutely going to take over anything that tries to get in its way. I mean, you talk about fans seething for any content. They want the first real content to show up, and that'll be the NFL season, as we've heard from multiple people through in the NFL. So I think that the NBA, whatever they decide to do, specifically this World Cup style, they would have to get going on it soon and really make sure that they're not going to be interfering with mini camps, training camp, preseason. Like the fans are getting ready for football season at this point.
Yeah, yeah, and that's it'll be interesting to see when Adam Silver decides to pull the trigger, and it would make sense to do it right now. Put it right in line with the NHL. I don't think that the two would be impacting each other because usually with sports that happen in the summer, mainly baseball, they happen during the day. They're not prime time. Not everything's gonna be prime time. And these are sports that aren't on one day of the week like football. They can happen every day of the week.
Well,
And so,
according to Adrian Wojnarowski, it's actually so the NFL owners, sorry, NBA owners, and Adam Silver have come up with this plan. They've now presented it to the players. The ball is actually in the players' court, for lack of
and how long do they have? Because there needs to be a quick
probably
turnaround on this.
probably a week.
That's a long time because you still have to give them time to prepare. Like, did they put a date on the NHL's return?
No date as of yet, for the NHL. We don't even know where the two hub cities are. That hasn't even been ironed out. So,
Yeah, and they
um,
have to work that out. That's going to take some time. You
yeah,
know,
I know the NHL said that there would be no training camp or anything leading up to theirs. I doubt the NBA would follow suit there. I believe they'd get at least a week or two of preparation to get back into working out as a team and get back into basketball shape and that kind of things. I just Adam Silver is by far the best commissioner in American professional sports. He thinks about the players, and I have a feeling that he's going to be with the players on this, getting them physically prepared to play for something like this if they're going to agree to it.
yeah, that would make sense. Um, you know, the I expect the NBA to come back. I always thought it would have made its return. I thought it would have made its return already, but the fact that it hasn't, doubt is starting to creep into my mind because we're cutting it close, and soon these players are going to have little to no off season because they're going to have to get back into training camp, training with their team for the upcoming season. That usually happens in late August, September.
Right.
By the time this is over, you're giving them a month off, and they've had to spend the last 2.5 months in quarantine. Who knows if quarantine's going to be over by the time these tournaments are over? Who knows where? So you're it's a very awkward situation where
Yeah.
these players.
There are states that aren't in quarantine anymore. I mean, take for example, the state of New Hampshire is not in quarantine anymore. Most of the state is opened up, minus restaurants and gyms, I believe, which open up in about a week or so, if I'm not mistaken. But restaurants are open for outdoor dining. I mean, people are back to work; they're back in their office. There are Florida not shut down. Um, there's plenty of places that
There
they could
are, but
go.
there you know there's also the rest of the world who's still not back to normal. Most of I'd say most of the world is still dealing with this thing, and now we have parts of the world like South America who are in the middle of it.
But I could imagine owners and Adam Silver working with President Trump and his cabinet on getting the NBA able to play, while also maintaining social distancing protocols, making sure that only essential personnel are
Well,
inside the arenas at that time.
that's the other thing. I know they limited the number of um, personnel to 50 per team
That
for
was
the
for the NHL.
for the NHL, and I'm sure they'll do the same for the NBA. What happens if there are teammates or just players that test positive? Now your team's yeah
They're gone.
your team's at a loss.
And it's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, look at Rudy Gobert. He gave it to Donovan Mitchell, not to bring up old wounds for the two of them, but I mean, he joked around. He ended up having it and gave it to a teammate. So I think the NBA is very well aware of the fact that they need to keep their distance not only from each other, but from the personnel that is going to be there, from the TV crews to the team personnel, everybody involved, and they're going to have to get rapid testing quickly.
Yeah, and we've seen it. It's pretty easy to do, and it becomes pretty standard. We saw it with the UFC, how well they were able to do it, and
Right.
how efficient it was. But we're talking about an even grander scale because you have all these different organizations times 50. So it adds. It's gonna. That's also gonna add on to the time before they can start. And I hope they started testing before they allowed them back in the facilities to be near each other.
Yeah. Well, I would assume that would happen. Again, there's still very little. Uh, there's still very little detail right now because it's only an idea that the NBA owners have thrown out to the players to try to get them back on the court. Now, um, I don't know if you saw this, but Damian Lillard was the first NBA player to speak out about anything that's happening, and he said if his team doesn't have a shot at the NBA playoffs, he doesn't want to play. He's like, it's not worth it to me. So I don't know how many players are like him that feel the same exact way. Where if his team isn't going to make the playoff bracket, why he doesn't want to play? I think that adds in a whole new layer of issues for the league to kind of mount, if you will, to get over before they can resume. And again, you talked about timing. That we're on the brink of, the NFL season technically starting with mini camps coming right around and training camps, and they have full expectation that they're going to have fans involved this season. So, you know, again, you're going to lose a lot of fans to the sport that's going to uh, keep them around.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, but there has to be some urgency with the players making a decision, and I think what we're gonna start to see in the coming days, how many more people agree with Dame Lillard, and how that'll impact uh, the entire thing. Because if you have bigger, other big names like Damian Lillard, who have such an impact on their team, there could be 4 or 5 teams that are lost just because one player doesn't want to compete. Without Damian Lillard, what are the Portland Trailblazers? They have
but
they have role players, right? They have role players. They don't have stars, but they
I wouldn't call him a role player, but okay.
That's that could be another debate, but if you have other players, if you have other players like if Giannis said he doesn't want to, LeBron said he doesn't want to.
But that's why it's in their hands right now. If they say that, then this plan doesn't move forward. They're not going to approve the plan and then have those guys say no. That's what I'm saying right now. It's kind of in a beta stage. It's already gone through the alpha, through the owners. Now it's got to go through the players.
Yeah, well, we'll see how this goes and how this plays out.
I just think I want to reiterate this fact. I think it's very interesting that the Eastern Conference teams have resisted the idea more so than anybody else because of the fact that they understand that there is a power balance between the Western Conference teams and the Eastern Conference teams. I think that's very fascinating. I want to get your quick thoughts on that whole idea.
I don't believe so. I think that they're pretty balanced.
Well, I mean, the report is out there. It is accurate. Like there have been GMs and owners for Eastern Conference teams that have said they don't want to play against the West in any format that they come back to. So I just can't imagine that them openly admitting basically that the West is a more powerful, star-studded side of basketball, which I believe it is. I think it's
on paper, yeah, it is, but yeah, I think
you're not telling me that the Charlotte Hornets are competing with the likes of the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're just not.
Probably not, no. But
right.
I think there are the Eastern Conference has kind of been turning around. I think you have teams like Miami who have become better. You have Boston who has improved. You have Toronto who's still high up there without Kawhi.
Right, but Kawhi went to the Clippers and made them that much stronger. Brought Paul George with him. That's 2 stars that left the East to go to the Western Conference. You have
if
Anthony
they can
Davis
stay healthy
in the West.
If they can stay healthy.
I understand that. And when you're talking about healthy, don't forget the Warriors with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. I mean, you have the balance of power is in the West.
I wouldn't expect.
I don't think that's a debate, honestly.
I think this goes back to what players are going to be playing. I don't expect players who could return from injury to play. I expect them to take the additional time to recover and rehab and be better for next season. I don't expect Steph Curry to make his return. I don't expect Klay Thompson. I expect it to just be Draymond. There, I don't expect. Dame Lillard's gone, so that's another team impacted.
He's not gone. It's not he. He just said if his team doesn't have a shot at making the playoffs, he's not returning.
If they're not competing for anything, which they clearly
No, that's
can't.
not what he said. He said if his team doesn't have a shot at making the playoffs, he is not returning. Basically saying if this is the style that they choose, he'll play. If they choose to go a different route where the Blazers have to compete to get into the playoffs, he's not playing. It's that simple.
I mean, if he really wants to consider 2/3 of the league a playoff, then I don't think.
But they have the
making
chance
sense.
to get to the playoff bracket of the top 8 teams. You don't think? I mean, it may not be the 1 through 8 seed of the NBA at that point. But I'm sure that we'll see some upsets.
Yeah, I expect to because they've been out of it for so long. People aren't in the right headspace, the right physical space.
And I would say NBA players more than NHL players have had ample opportunity to be able to, play basketball at their homes. Most NBA players are from the United States. Most of them do have a basketball hoop at their home. I would assume that they've at least been training somewhat and keeping in NBA shape. As a Celtics fan, I know that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum both have. I know Kemba Walker has. I'm sure LeBron has. I don't think he's, especially at his age, he has to keep up his physical conditioning at all times. I just think that they need less of a training period heading into this than anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, it's less physical than the NHL, and so it doesn't take that much. Like, anybody can just go out one day, pick up a basketball, and be good to go after a shoot-around. It doesn't take as much work to get yourself ready. And especially when you're not running as many schemes and drawing up as many plays in a situation where you're not competing for a real championship, or in a situation where it's just as crucial. So you can just go out there, just play your game, play what do what you have to, just hit the open man, take your shot when you have it. It doesn't get more detailed than that. You're not expected to play a certain way or be in a certain role. You can just go out there and do what you want. And I expect a more relaxed style. It's not going to be it'll be more of an all-star style where there is a lack of defense. It's going to be high-scoring games, and we'll see. I just don't expect the level of competition to be as high with whoever is out there, whoever decides to come back.
Well, we'll see if the players do approve this idea, but I want to move on to our next topic, and you just mentioned something about not being able to compete for a championship with those players. You know who else isn't going to be competing for a championship this year? That's right, you guessed it, the New York Jets. So the New York Jets have had ample opportunity to sign their star safety and probably, most definitely, their best player to a long-term deal. They haven't done that yet. Jamal Adams is still remaining on his rookie contract. They just exercised his 5th-year option for the 2021 season. He has openly asked / demanded for a more money, longer term contract. He wants to stay a Jet as long as they're willing to pay him. And as of right now, Joe Douglas is saying, "Nah, we're good. You're going to play for your rookie contract." What do you think about everything that's going on? I mean, we started with this back in October of last year when there was major speculation that, and a trade did almost happen with Jamal Adams going to the Cowboys. trades are swirling again. Rumors are swirling again. Nick, what's going on here?
Well, you know, you would think that Jamal Adams really has the upper hand, but I think with the latest news and the Cowboys saying they're not really interested in trading for Jamal, they are, but they aren't. There's other safeties out there that they can go grab,
Right.
who have who are
And
big names.
possibly Earl Thomas being cut.
Earl Thomas could be cut. Eric Berry's still out there. Rashad Jones. They have other players that they could go with that are readily available and cheaper in the long.
And they signed Clinton Dix in the offseason.
Right. So they're not desperate
They're not
for
desperate, right.
for a safety. And I think that's without a team that was as enthusiastic as the Cowboys were at the trade deadline, looking for a player like Jamal. I think that means the Jets have the upper hand and are able to sway the conversation. They get to now decide. Look, there's nobody out there that's willing to go after you right now. You can either accept this deal or you can wait for next. We can reconvene next season and see how you do after this one. And I think that's where it's gonna be left. I don't expect, unless he's really willing to sit out games or push himself out the door via social media like other players, Jalen Ramsey, other
Le'Veon
players,
Bell.
Le'Veon, yeah, use that tactic. If he's willing to do that, then he could get his way. But I think as of right now, the Jets organization, the front office, have the upper hand in the contract negotiations. And Jamal Adams, in my opinion, he's better off standing pat. Play your game, do as good as you can, prove that you are the best safety in the league. Once again, and I think everybody's gonna be coming for you, because there are some quiet teams out there that want this guy, but they want the Jets asking price to be reduced, because right now they're going to be asking for a ton. That's just how Joe Douglas works. He doesn't pay you much, and if you want a good player, he's going to ask for the moon. And I think if you continue, if Jamal Adams goes out there, plays his game, does his thing, makes a lot of noise saying he doesn't want to be with the organization, saying how bad it is and whatnot, then the asking price goes down. You have a player who doesn't want to be there, and just play that waiting game. That's really what it comes down to. So Jamal Adams could earn his way back into leading the contract negotiations, but it's going to take time. Right now, it's not looking good for him.
Yeah, I'm 100% on the other side of this. Jamal Adams is one of, if not the best safety in the NFL. Right? That's just a fact. I mean, he at minimum he's top 3. He could be number 1. Arguments could be made. I'm gonna leave that there. He's playing on a rookie contract. He is, like I said in the opening, he is by far the best player that the New York Jets organization has. Now, they have only $15 million to work with for this season. But moving forward, they have quite a bit of money. And obviously, they still have players that they need to pay. Sam Darnold's on a rookie contract. They have people that they need to just make sure that they have money for in the future. With that being said, Jamal Adams doesn't need to play. He's shown exactly what he can do on an NFL football field. He has shown that he can single-handedly transform a defense. And you brought in Greg Williams to be the defensive coordinator to pair with this guy. You wanted him to be the star of your defense. He did it. He played lights out. And he has. Ever since he's back to college at LSU, now he's the same difference. He has done it all. He's given everything for the organization. He's asking for his payday. And because that the NFL wants to stick to the standard of we're not going to pay you because we have you under contract for 5 years is blasphemy at best. I mean, the fact of the matter is that Jamal Adams, as a Jets fan, for Jets fans out there, they want him to stop making noise, shut up, and play. But they also don't want him to think about sitting out games, so they're hoping Joe Douglas starts working on a program to get him paid.
And
Right?
if you wanted that, why'd you go get one of the cheapest GMs out there? A guy who waited until the second wave of free agency to go get any offensive lineman to protect his franchise quarterback. Didn't get him an offensive weapon until the draft. Waited until the second round. Denzel Mims.
But you also have a GM who's almost very close. When I say almost, I mean they were literally 3 words away from shipping him to Dallas last October. I mean, it was so close that Jets fans probably don't want to know about it. And they were going to get Michael Gallup in like a 3 or some ridiculousness. I mean, they weren't going to get much for him. The more this goes on, the less time that's on his rookie contract, the Jets are losing ground on what they could possibly get back for him. If I'm Joe Douglas, I'm not trading him for anything. He is the cornerstone of that franchise. He is more of a star and more important than Sam Darnold is. Just to be frank, he may not directly, it may not directly hit the outcome of each game like the quarterback position does, but overall, he means so much to how that defense plays, their mentality, his leadership skills, what he does in the locker room. And if you're going to sour that relationship, what else does he have to prove to show that he needs to be paid like a top safety? Kevin Byard is getting paid $18 million a year. I can see Jamal Adams getting between 18 and 20. It's just that simple.
I know. I think we agree in that aspect that he is probably the best safety in the league, and he deserves to be paid like that.
But the Jets don't have leverage here. That's where we disagree. I don't think the Jets have any leverage except for the fact that he's continuing on his rookie deal. All he has to do is say, I'm not playing.
But we don't know what the market... There are no teams that have come out and said, hey, we'd be interested in this guy. No one has said that. There was one team that people assumed, and that was the Cowboys, and they came out and said, we're actually not interested in him.
That's not necessarily what they said.
They're not willing to
give up Michael Gallup, and I understand that. But that's also Jerry being Jerry and trying to negotiate. This is his way of negotiation. It's through the media, right? He's trying to dampen the relationship with Jamal and Joe Douglas. And I mean, I don't think Jerry really needs to step into it. I think Jamal and Joe Douglas already have a sour relationship. This is what I'm saying. I don't think the Jets have any leverage at all when it comes to Jamal Adams. He single-handedly has been able to turn around that defense. And they were able to get him some pieces around him in the linebacking core. Now they need to work on some of the defensive line, get him a corner. I mean, Joe Douglas still hasn't signed somebody like Logan Ryan. They've been in quote-unquote negotiations for, 4 or 5 weeks now? I mean, what the hell is he waiting for? So, I mean, at this point, Jamal Adams is saying, listen, you're not giving me a corner. The defensive line needs to be worked on. You're cheap as shit. And I know that I'm the best player on this team, and you're paying me hot garbage. I don't want to play anymore. Now that if Jamal doesn't play, how many games do you think the Jets are going to win?
I mean, I don't expect them to win many now, as it is. So
right. So I would give the Jets 1, maybe 2 wins if Jamal Adams doesn't play.
I think
if he does, I can see them winning up to 5.
You also have to remember who they drafted and who they have. They have Marcus May, who is an underrated safety. He's
right, but he can't handle the same load Jamal does.
He can't.
He cannot play the same position.
And that's where their draft pick comes into play. Ashton Davis. If he can be healthy, he would have been a first-round he's first-round talent, but because of his injury history, he dropped a little bit. He dropped farther than he should have, but they got a steal in Ashton Davis. This guy is 6 feet tall.
Because he can stay healthy. You just said that.
For now he's healthy. Right now he's healthy. He had one big injury in college, and that was it. This guy was he was a track star in college. He was a track star in high school. This man is speedy. He's got great hands, great nose for the ball. He's an impact player. He can play everywhere on the field.
That's great. I don't deny his talent or what he can do. He can't stay healthy, and Marcus May can't. Neither one of them are Jamal Adams. Neither one of them.
No, I'm not saying he's Jamal Adams, but I'm saying the production level doesn't drop as far as you may think it does. They're still gonna get a lot of productivity out of their safeties.
So why not trade him? If that's how they truly feel, capitalize on his asking price now.
Because he has, you mentioned he can change a game or two. They just need to come to an agreement on a price. But we disagree with who has the leverage. I think the Jets front office has the leverage because we haven't seen what the market is for Jamal Adams until we see it. Hey, if tomorrow or in 5 minutes, they come out and say there's 5 teams that are really willing to make a trade right now for this guy, then I'd say yeah, it's back in Jamal Adams' court. But as of right now, who's asking for him? No one.
I guarantee if you said Jamal Adams was available for a trade, you'd have at least 10 teams calling you right off the cuff. Right off the cuff.
I'm sure they fielded offers to see. Teams are asking what the asking price is, but a lot of them aren't going to pay it, and they're going to wait and sit it out because it's always a waiting game with these situations. The player's going to get frustrated. He's going to lash out on social media or not show up at all, and then it's back in another team's favor to look. Now the price has dropped tremendously, and we can work out a trade.
Okay, now think of it from the perspective of a Jets fan. You finally got.
Well, Jets fans are losing no matter what because the rapport you have between your front office and one of your best players has completely tanked. And
don't forget they're also trying to ship out Le'Veon Bell, right? So you have Jamal Adams, and also the star running back that Jets fans were in love with when it came to free agency. They're trying to there's a possibility that the season starts and neither one of them are on the team. But there is a distinct possibility that could happen. I'm not saying that it will or that it's even likely. I'm just saying there's a possibility.
I don't expect Le'Veon to go anywhere. He's already been paid. He's not complaining. All you asked for, he knew he was going to have to wait a season or two to get better help on the offense. Look, that offensive line has improved tremendously. They added a stud wide receiver on offense to Jamison Crowder, who put up great numbers when he had no help around him last season, and you have 2 solid tight ends. So I think that they're going to be better on offense, and Le'Veon Bell has nothing to worry about, and I don't expect him to be moved at earliest. It would be the trade deadline. I don't expect not many teams are willing to take on that contract. It would be a salary dump, and I don't think Joe Douglas, he'd be willing to go another season without dumping Le'Veon Bell. Because
if it meant dumping Le'Veon Bell to be able to pay Jamal Adams for this season, I don't think Joe Douglas should hesitate doing that.
Well, they can structure. It's not about this season because you can restructure contracts to be backloaded. I'm sure Jamal Adams is going to want like a 4 or 5 year deal, which is long in the NFL.
$20 million per year.
Yeah, and you can backload that because every year the salary cap is going up for. The next 10 years, however long the CBA is, it's going up. Yeah. So by the time that contract is up, 18 to 20 million is actually going to be just above average for a safety.
I mean, then he's going to want to set the
also,
market for
I think you're overestimating how many players they actually have to pay. They already paid Le'Veon, but he could be gone. They need to pay Sam if he is worth it. This is his prove-it year. If he doesn't, he's out probably. He's not their franchise, and they'll move on.
They'll give him his entire rookie contract.
I don't agree with that. Then
they did the same thing with Mark Sanchez and Geno Smith and everybody else.
You got a different GM in there. You got a new GM in there. He doesn't think the same. He's very
You have
different.
Adam Gase there.
Well,
You have Adam Gase there.
he's in the hot seat. He's in the hot seat. We all know that.
He's been in a hot seat since 2016. He's still a head coach in the NFL.
Listen, they have plenty of room moving forward to pay Jamal Adams and keep the other big stars if they want to.
You have a lot more faith in the Jets front office than I do. That's for damn sure.
You know what? I think Joe Douglas is an extremely smart guy.
I do too.
I
also
think
that his ability to be cheap is going to get in the way of his business decision making.
It already has to a point, but when a player like Jamal has a fifth year, he's under contract for pretty much 2 more years. You don't need to figure this out right now. You still have another offseason.
If he plays.
I'm tired of these players trying to renegotiate their rookie, get out of the rookie deal 2 years after they've been in the league. No. You were drafted in the 5th round. You knew what came with that. You could be under contract for 5 years and getting paid nothing. Most people get paid nothing in their 20s. You don't make your money until you're a true veteran in whatever industry you're in. So I don't, he'll get his money. I think he just needs to wait.
Well, as of right now, he doesn't want to. And that's why we're having this conversation. And that's why these trade rumors continue to swirl. I just want to throw this out there as just a what-if scenario. Forget, salary caps and everything else. If he gets traded, where does he go?
It's an interesting question. He's gonna, I think, I don't know.
Because I could see a team like Philadelphia being in the mix. I could see
possibly.
A team like obviously the Cowboys are in the mix. Possibly the Cardinals. You could throw, a whole mess of teams out there that could utilize his services. Miami.
I could see a team like Cleveland if they wanted to move Odell.
That's another one.
I don't
Odell,
think they have to, but they don't. Yeah, but they have the most salary cap room as it is.
But that's what I'm saying. So, you think Cleveland?
Cleveland to me would make a lot of sense. Yeah, they have young corners, and I believe they have a young safety. They just drafted a safety, one of the top safeties in the draft. So they have one. Pair him with Jamal Adams, and you've really solidified your DB's core. That'll really help them because this is a Browns team that's going to be making a quick playoff push for a championship.
I think if it came down to it, Jerry Jones does not let Jamal Adams go to any other team other than his own. He'll do whatever it takes.
I don't think he has as many pieces unless he's willing to give up more draft picks.
He probably would. They're in a scenario where they're supposed to be winning now-ish.
Jerry Jones has to figure out his quarterback situation. I think that needs to be on the front of his mind.
If you think about it, Dak is... he's shown that he can do it. They need to get him... They need to make him figure out how to do it consistently, and I think that's why Mike McCarthy is there, to get that type of productivity.
We have to see how that works out, too. How Mike McCarthy, who's been out of the sport for, a year and a half, he coached big name quarterbacks, and he did a great job with Aaron Rodgers. It wasn't. I think it was still more of Aaron Rodgers' fault than McCarthy's, and McCarthy should never have lost his job. So I think that Dak is definitely getting an improvement from Jason Garrett, but you still have a terrible offensive coordinator, and I don't think you're gaining CeeDee Lamb, but you lose a tight end, solid tight end, Jason Witten. Yeah, he wasn't giving you great production, but
Blake Jarwin can do just what Witten did last year, if not more.
You're kind of falling into a Patriots scenario where you're playing with no tight ends.
Yeah, but I like Blake Jarwin more than I like the current Jason Witten. So I think they're getting an upgrade at the tight end position. more than they are a downgrade. I don't see it that way. I think you have to see what he can do as a number one tight end, and I think that he will be the security blanket. I mean, he's worked with Dak his entire career. Like that's who he was throwing to, and then they brought Jason Witten back.
Yeah.
It didn't count.
We'll see. Uh, Going back to the topic though. Um, I don't expect the deal to get worked out this year. I expect it to get done next season. I don't expect Jamal Adams to go anywhere because I know Joe Douglas would be in the hot seat if he were to move Jamal Adams. He's a hard to come by safety, and he is an immediate impact player for any team. And he really has the abilities to change how a game plays out. So that all that adds up, and I don't think that's something that the Jets could live without. They can't live without it now, and they haven't they haven't lost him yet, but they need to work it out.
The Jets are going to jet. That's what I always say.
Hey, I think Joe Douglas. I think he's a smart man. He'll start making some corrections.
Yeah, maybe once he opens his wallet and finds the pliers to be able to open it up. Until then, no shot. All right, we have one more topic. It was the signal of the return to sports. I think I heard you say something along the lines this weekend of I never thought the two sports I'd be watching this weekend would be NASCAR and golf.
Yeah.
And I mean, we did watch golf. That is for damn sure. For those of you who don't know, the match 2, which was widely advertised and talked about, finally happened. It was Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson versus Peyton Manning and Tiger Woods. They played for, I forgot what the amount was, but it was all...
It accumulated to $20 million.
$20 million, right. And it's all to charity. It's all for COVID relief. They split it amongst different charities that are all helping as part of the relief effort. It's part of the All-in-One Challenge. If you haven't heard of that, Google it. It's a great cause. With that being said, it was fun. I mean, besides the weather, it was fun to watch. I was excited. Did you learn anything from it?
I learned that Tom Brady is not a great golfer. They were saying, the commentators were saying during it that he's usually better than this, but I guess when all eyes are on him, he's not Mr. Clutch on the golf course.
Yeah, until Chuck says something sharp, and he drills a 155-yard shot on a double bounce right into the cup. So I mean, you put the pressure on him, and then all of a sudden, I think, flames start. But I think the weather also had something to do with it.
Oh, it couldn't have helped. We also learned that Tom Brady needs to have looser pants.
He did split his pants on that same shot that I just talked about.
Yeah, picking up the ball. That was pretty funny, but I actually really enjoyed the format of this, and I thought it was a very interesting way of playing golf because it's not traditional rules. It's not. It was a lot more lively and not as boring because the commentators were more loose. They were joking around constantly.
Well, that's what you get with Charles Barkley.
You got to hear the golfers. They were interviewing them in between shots as they were driving to different courses. You could hear them communicate with each other, teach each other, tell each other what to do and how to set up the next shot for each other.
They were also talking smack to each other, which was, I think, the best part of that.
No, that was great too. But that's what happens when you put these rivalries back together. And it was great to see, but I would love to see this happen again. It doesn't have to be Peyton and Brady, but we could get other people in there. We could get
Jordan and Isaiah.
We can finally see LeBron versus Jordan. Uh,
There you go.
put those two competitive minds together, and I mean, I think MJ has the upper hand based on that documentary. He played golf constantly, can't miss his tee time, so um, it would be interesting. But I really liked it, and I would love to see that again.
Yeah, I think it was fun. It was a nice, fun way to spend a Sunday, the Sunday of a holiday weekend. I think overall it was just really just kind of relaxing, and I liked the banter between Tiger and Phil and Peyton and Tom, and I think they had some good times. And then obviously again, like I said, you throw Charles Barkley, who was talking into their ear, and he was talking smack to all four of them, and they gave it right back to him. I mean, it was basically the who could tell the most Chuck jokes. Uh, Overall, I think it was fun. I would like to see the PGA adopt the idea of the in-round interviews and the ability to showcase the smack talk, and like I think that would liven up the sport a bit. Obviously, um, golf has a specific audience, but if the PGA wants to continue honing an audience and honing a younger audience, I think that's something that they might have to look into adopting at this point.
Yeah, and it does. This isn't something that has to be with all the professional golfers. You could take the top players and pin them against each other.
I'd love
Um,
to see Rory McIlroy and Phil or Tiger or
Brooks Koepka.
yeah, Brooks Koepka, any of them, and I'd like to hear those guys going at it. I don't really care about the bottom end of the barrel guys. What are they gonna say? Who knows who they are. But the guys who have done something and won something, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear them talk smack, for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Yeah, it's a great thing they did, and I really like the format. So,
One of the best
props
things,
to whoever put that together.
true, and one of the best things that I'm sure you'll agree, but like I love like after the football season or after each week they have the mic'd up scenes where they show players who have been mic'd up on certain weeks, and you get to hear them commanding the huddle, talking to players across the line of scrimmage. You get to hear a whole hell of a lot of stuff. They do the same thing in basketball and baseball. I so it's not unprecedented. Golf could easily do it. I would just like to see it become commonplace for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, that is definitely a part that is missing from golf these days from the PGA. So adding another feature like that, it would liven things up and really improve viewership and interest in the sport.
Yeah. And then for those of you who watch, you might have noticed this, but there was something off between Tiger and Peyton. Um, it could be nothing, but it just seemed like there was some sort of, I don't want to say animosity, but just an uncomfortable aura, if you will, between the two of them. Did you notice that? Did you notice? Did you see that? Did you see
Yeah,
anything?
I mean I noticed it, but I don't really think that anything was going on because they were talking fine. They were communicating well in the beginning, and I think they were just so focused on what they were doing that you know, like Tiger said, he trusts Peyton. He trusted what he was doing, and so I think they both just went into their zones and did their thing. They didn't have to talk too much. But Brady was struggling so much. I think Phil said like pretty much thought I need to help this guy out in every which way, otherwise we're gonna have no shot. And he was telling him exactly what to do, what club to use, where to hit it, how to read the green. Exactly, just like the green's going this way, it's gonna turn this way, and the ball's gonna hook back. So hit it right there with this amount of power, and you could hear all of that, and so that helped them. But we saw the outcome. Tiger and Peyton won, and I think that shows that they didn't need to help. Peyton didn't need as much help, even though they started to teeter off at the end. I just think that it just worked for them, and then to each his own. What works for you works, and I don't think it really has anything to do with they don't like each other.
No, I agree. I don't. I didn't. I just saw. I felt there was. I felt like there might have been a little uncomfortableness. I think it's more around the fact that Tiger is used to being a solo actor in his sport versus on a team on the green with four different people. They're not playing, a professional style of golf. They're playing, they had different challenge holes in there. It was a little different. I think Tiger was kind of just focused and didn't really give a whole hell of a lot to to Peyton and let him kind of do his thing. And you didn't hear Tiger speak a lot of it. And I think for a good part of the beginning portion, you didn't hear Brady speak until he finally hit that shot on uh, the fourth hole, when he finally started to loosen up and he started to play his game. Unfortunately, again, the weather didn't help. It was a deluge of rain at the same exact time. These guys were getting soaked. The rain was pretty much just flowing from right to left and swirling all around them. It was very interesting to see, because usually in something like that, golf is either postponed or canceled, and because this is a charity event, they didn't really have
They didn't have that luxury.
they didn't have a second time prepared for this. They were like, rain or shine, as long as it's not thundering and lightning, we're going to continue to do this. So
yeah, and they only had a few holes left by the time it really got bad. So
yeah,
they just wanted to get through.
I thought it was fun. It was a good time, and again, it was for a great cause, so I can't be mad at that.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I know you said this, but a lot of people have said it. Just remember, Brady is 0-1 without Belichick. That is what we need to keep the eye on.
Yeah, that's another, put that under what we learned. Brady can't do it, and he continues to struggle in Florida. I think that's what it is.
That's right.
Yeah, he probably has a losing record in Florida, and that's not too good if he's going to be playing for Tampa this season.
I know.
I'm sorry, Tampa. I'm playing for
Tampa Brady. Is that what it's called now? I can't get over it. Anyway.
Who knows? Can't keep up.
All right, so that's going to do it for us this week. We had a blast. Hopefully, we'll be able to talk real sports real soon, especially with the NHL return. Hopefully, the NBA gets their issues resolved between the players, and they can finally agree to something, get that ball rolling. Let us know what you think. Jamal Adams, does he stay? Does he go? What do you think is going to happen? And we will see you next week. Thank you for tuning in.